This type of episode of Test Drive is probably one of the most important when it comes to actually buying a car. If you're interested in having it for more than like a week, you want to know how reliable it is. But the reality is, in the world of automotive journalism, we get these cars for a week. You might be lucky and get it for 2 weeks, and if you're really in the budget to be able to buy them, then you can talk about them long term. That's why sometimes journalists get long-term test vehicles like this 2019 Kia Sportage EX. We've had this vehicle for about 6 months now and driven just under 22,000 kilometers with it. That's about 22 times as much as we do with any other car that we do here on Test Drive. So we have a pretty good idea of how it works. It is a little dirty though, and I know you guys like it clean, so it's only take a second. There we go, much better. So we're going to be taking our 2019 Kia Sportage on the road, talking about how it's been for the last 22,000 kilometers and everything that we liked and disliked about this compact crossover SUV. You know, 22,000 kilometers is a lot for any car in this time frame. I mean, usually you're doing between 20 and maybe 26,000 kilometers during the course of a year. To do that in half a year, it's not uncommon for us. We actually did that the first year with our BMW 7 Series. We did about 60,000 kilometers in the first year with that car. So it's no surprise for us that we've been able to do that much. But for the average consumer, it's not necessarily going to be happening that quickly, but it gives us a good opportunity to actually be able to go over this car in terms of what we've experienced in 22,000 kilometers, because that is a pretty good idea of your first year. Now, the only two service maintenance related things we've done were 2 oil changes. That's it. It's been in for service twice. It needs to go in for a third time now that the car is at 22,000. So it'd be 3 oil changes essentially from this point, and that's it. You can get a set of winter tires if you live in a climate like ours. They might cost you up to about $1,000, $1,200. We always recommend something like Michelin X Ice. I think they're on X Ice 4s now, but we always like the Michelin tires. But you can go with whatever you think is best. We've done videos on that before for specific cars, but there's a lot of opinion out there. But definitely having winter tires is an important thing to have, even with all-wheel drive. And I think that's one of the reasons why this car is relatively popular. It's not the most popular compact crossover in the market. I think the look, front end's just, I don't know, it's a little different, right? We had a lot of people comment when we did the original spotlight on this car to talk about, essentially they didn't like the front end of it, right? So it might take some getting used to, but that might be why sales of this haven't been as strong as some of the competition. But as I promised when we did our spotlight, where we did not do a likes and dislikes segment, I will be doing that for this car. Now that we've had it for 22,000 kilometers, I can really go over what I do like and dislike about it from a long-term perspective. But one of the things I'll talk about right now, before we get into the wrap-up segment, I know it's a shorter episode, but we've done 9 liters per 100 kilometers over the course of the 22,000 kilometer journey that we've done. And it's not the best, it's not the worst, it's kind of right in the middle, the upper tier of what we'd like to see for a car like this, especially considering a lot of the driving that we've done with this vehicle has been on the highway. So we would have expected that number to be a little bit lower. However, we are going to take it on our test loop, so we'll have a benchmark idea of what this will do on our 100 kilometer test circuit. So we'll be doing that for the wrap-up segment. I haven't filmed that or haven't driven that as of this time yet. But I just want to point out that, again, this isn't a road test. This isn't us talking about the interior or exterior. If you want to know more about that, you can click the actual spotlight episode. We'll have a link to it in the top right corner of your screen right now. If you haven't watched it already, there's also going to be a link at the end of the video as well as in the description. So if you want to know everything about this car, you can take a look at it there. But again, this is really just going over the maintenance and reliability standpoint of things over the last 6 months. And I have to say that there's been nothing else. We've had no issues with the vehicle. It's worked well. Nothing has broken. The interior is still in the good shape that it was when we picked it up. So for 22,000 kilometers at least, it definitely holds up. We've had no issues with it. Like I said, it hasn't been to the shop aside from oil changes. So you really can't complain. I mean, that's what you want from a new car, right? If you were going in for repairs and everything at 22K, that's a big red flag. But that's why we want to look at more cars like this on a long-term basis so that we can really know for sure. Because that is a number one question that we get asked for a lot of these vehicles, is what's going to be the long-term reliability? And for a week, it's hard for us to know. Even for 6 months, it's still hard for us to know for sure. but at least it gives us a better picture of what a vehicle like this could be on a long-term basis. And as I said, everything works well. Yeah, it's still comfortable enough. There are other vehicles in the market that I feel are more comfortable, but considering this isn't fully loaded, this is the run-of-the-mill, what most people are going to be looking at trim, it certainly has gotten the job done. We haven't had any major complaints about it. So it works well, priced well. It's just maybe the design that isn't on par with everybody. But then again, reliability-wise, it's been solid.
22,000 kilometers is a long time to reflect on a car. As mentioned, we had no unscheduled repairs or maintenance done on this Sportage and performed oil changes once every 8,000 kilometers. We used about 1,980 liters of fuel during this time frame, which comes out to around $2,300 Canadian worth of gas if we averaged out the fuel cost to $1.16. Since prices have fluctuated over the last half year, it's hard to get an exact dollar amount. Now let's go over some of our likes and dislikes. The heated steering wheel is a plus. While it's not uncommon to find on the consumer segment these days, Kia does offer it starting at this EX trim. Price is also competitive, with a lower MSRP than a similarly equipped 2019 Toyota RAV4 and almost on par for pricing with the 2019 Honda CR-V. Rear seat space on this compact crossover is also a plus, being spacious enough for families with kids or if you need to haul 4 adults around. And Kia's infotainment system works very well, even without factory navigation on this trim, much like the competition. The responsive UI and included Android Auto and Apple CarPlay gives you what you need. But we had the chance to really get to know some of the Sportage's faults during our time with it. The biggest complaints are the halogen headlights. Nighttime performance is mind-bogglingly bad, and the high beams do little to help. Fuel economy was also lower than we expected, at 9 liters per 100 kilometers or 26 US miles per gallon during our 22,000 kilometer test, but only getting down to 8.4 liters per 100 kilometers or 28 mpg during our 100 kilometer test loop. The front end design is also a negative for us, as many comments from our first episode on this car found the front end look to be too funky and bubbly over the competition. We've heard rumors that a facelift is scheduled for the 2020 model year, which we hope will address this complaint. And finally, some advice from us to Kia Canada. Take a page out of Mazda's playbook and consolidate your trims. 6 in total, 3 different versions of the EX trim and a top-end SX gives consumers a lot to look at, but ultimately too much information. They need to reposition the trims in order to incentivize customers, considering the top-end Sportage SX costs more than a 2018 Mazda CX-5 GT, and that shows me that the trim options need to be adjusted. Cut things down to 4 trims and I think you'll see better sales numbers for the Sportage. We really enjoyed getting the chance to feature a car like this for an extended period of time. We think that consumers are curious about this kind of long-term testing, and we want to produce more episodes like this. Your continued support is what will allow us to do this, so leave a comment below telling us what you think of this episode and what you'd like to see us focus on in subsequent long-term tests like this. I want to be able to go back to our contacts here in Montreal and show them that there is a demand for these long-term reviews, in the hopes that we'll get the chance to do more of them.